Good morning, everybody. This is the news that we are waking up to for Tuesday, February the 4th, 2025. On a personal note, today would have been my father's 92nd birthday. So happy birthday, Dad. It is day 1077 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And last night we saw the Russian Federation send 63 attack drones of the Shahed 131, 136 class at the territory of Ukraine. All drones were dispatched, either shot down, 37 of them shot down, and another 26 eliminated with active countermeasures. We have breaking news that in Izium, there has been a major missile attack this morning. And I just only now was able to find some photographs of the damage posted at various Telegram channels and reposted by the Kyiv Post. There are lots of folks dead. This is the city administration complex. You can see it is in ruins. And it's a work day. So everybody was at work today when this happened. The Russian terror campaign continues. Over the weekend, we saw a massive missile strike on energy infrastructure in the country. That is creating intense pressure on an already fragile grid where we have seen 80% of the thermal power plants in Ukraine destroyed, not damaged, not out of service, destroyed. And Ukraine has managed to add a whole gigawatt of energy, independent, decentralized energy generation in the last year during the war, but it is not enough. And right now we are seeing emergency blackouts in 8 regions: Kharkiv, Sumy, Donetsk, Poltava, Zaporizhia, Kirovohrad, Cherkasy, and Dnipropetrovsk. Here in the capital, thank God, the electricity has been on. This situation is untenable. Something must be done to secure the energy infrastructure for this country, especially now in the middle of winter. This guy is IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi. Now, the International Atomic Energy Agency. He's the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency. And he is in Ukraine on an inspection tour of the Kyivska substation in an effort to assess the danger that the damaged energy grid poses, not just to the cold shutdown Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, but to the 4 other functioning nuclear power plants in Ukraine that right now Ukraine is so dependent on for its energy. There is a relationship between that fragile grid where energy is produced by solar, wind, coal, other ways, right? And the nuclear power plants. The nuclear power plants depend on that external grid to pump the water into the cooling state, into the reactor cores. They depend on that external power grid for critical failover systems. When the power grid goes into a hard shutdown, it can trigger a hard shutdown of your nuclear reactors as well. And when that happens, there is time. It takes time to get the reactors back up and running. It takes time to feed that energy back onto the grid. It takes time to get that grid back up. And with sub-zero temperatures, that's a problem at this time of year. Now, legitimately, it has been warm. We're talking about +5 or about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Last week, we actually saw days here in Kyiv of 50. But next week, the temperatures all go back to seasonal. We get a polar vortex come down and the lights and heat are off. Ukrainian grandmothers are going to freeze in their beds again, which has been the thrust of the entire aggressive campaign against Ukrainian infrastructure since the start of this war. So we certainly welcome Mr. Grossi, Dr. Grossi, and his team to Ukraine. and we look forward to their findings. Good news. After a brief pause, Reuters is reporting that weapons deliveries to Ukraine have begun again. They have resumed. So we were all concerned that when Trump paused foreign aid and basically gutted USAID and all foreign aid programs, that weapons deliveries to Ukraine would be impacted. That has not been the case, as Andrei Kovalenko at the Ukrainian Center for Countering Disinformation, did let us know right at the start of this crisis. So weapons are coming back into Ukraine, and that's good news. Now, yesterday, this guy here, this is Alexander. I'm not going to butcher his last name because the guy's a fucking hero. He was one of the first soldiers that we knew of to be summarily executed by the Russians. This happened back on December 30th, 2022. When insulted by a Russian soldier, he looked him in the eye and said, "Slava Ukraini," right? Glory to Ukraine. And he was shot on the spot. A statue to him stands here in Kyiv. Guy's a hero. He is not the only one to have suffered this war crime upon him. Yesterday, Monday, February 3rd, the UN Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine released a report documenting 24 incidents. Now, we know that there are more, but this report was specific to these most recent incidences, in which 79 Ukrainian armed forces POWs were summarily executed. The cases were all confirmed. That is, that they were verified by geolocated, chronolocated, and eyewitness statements. The mission head, Danielle Bell, said, quote, "These incidents do not occur in a vacuum. Public figures in the Russian Federation have explicitly called for inhumane treatment and even execution of captured Ukrainian military personnel. Many Ukrainian soldiers who surrendered or were in physical custody of the Russian armed forces were shot dead on the spot. Witnesses also described the killings of unarmed and injured Ukrainian soldiers." Now look, a lot of people want to say that this is Putin's war, and that's fine. We know that he is the prime mover, the motivator. His imperial ambitions are behind all of it. But it's guys in the trenches committing these kinds of war crimes, ordered by their superiors right up the chain all the way to Putin, that enable the horror of this war. Make no mistake, there is nobody inside of Russia that doesn't have blood on their hands. And that's something we got to come to terms with. The findings of the monitoring mission to Ukraine confirm what we all know. Russia is committing simply not war crimes here in Ukraine, but attempted genocide at every level, from the murder of POWs and civilians to the weaponization of sex as punitive, to pillaging the antiquities of this nation. Russia's only goal in Ukraine is to wipe from history and from the face of the earth an entire people, culture, and language. And the sooner that the West wakes up to what Russia is, the sooner maybe we will be able to deal with this. To be released today, 90-minute interview with Zelensky by Piers Morgan, who I hate. This obnoxious British piece of shit can fuck right off as far as I'm concerned. But I'll be interested to see how Zelensky deals with him. It's really no different than sitting down with Tucker Carlson, frankly. He's the same kind of piece of shit. And I will try to watch this video. I don't know if I will get it done for tonight's live at 5, but maybe tomorrow's news we are waking up to. Now, Trump, in his first 2 weeks in office, we see the incompetency of Trump and his administration writ large, driven by the same gangster mentality as Putin and all dictators. Donald Trump believes that in any deal, there's got to be a winner and a loser. And the more you lose, the more he wins. That's all his feral, fetid reptilian brain is capable of understanding. It lacks all nuance. And we see it in the delayed implementation of the tariffs against Canada and Mexico. He announces these tariffs. What happens? The stock market shed 1.5% of its value in a day. The S&P 5, now it recovered a little bit in the end, right, because word came out that it wasn't going to happen. And so it recovered a little bit. It only lost 0.3%, which is lots of money, lots of money. Anyway, the S&P 500 didn't fare as well, shedding 0.8%. And the NASDAQ, which dropped 2.5% in value, $1 trillion, recovered to 1.2% loss yesterday. Now, the trading floor is not yet open in New York, and so we don't know what today will bring. But on tonight's Live at 5, we'll take a look at how the stock market fares with the knowledge that the tariffs implementation will be delayed. But it's not off the table yet. Trump is insisting. And remember, he's the one that threw NAFTA out to replace it with NAFTA, basically. His great Mexico, Canada, America free trade agreement, which was nothing but NAFTA 2.0. And yet, in his speeches to his people, he says, what kind of people negotiated these terms? It was fucking him, for Christ's sake. So this is all bully posturing to try to extract some concession from our closest allies and trading partners. He is threatening not just the economy of the United States, but that of North America. It's insanity. And it's all driven because he believes a lie, a shared belief that Putin has. It's a lie that we teach in history class to our children, that history is written by great men, not movements. This is nonsense. This is not how the world works. The single greatest virtue of our species is the ability to work together, to collaborate, to cooperate, to create not win-lose scenarios, but win-win scenarios. That's why America, having embraced that notion, having made that the underlying principle in all of our law, a sense of fairness. And I know we failed a lot in reaching that ideal, but it is our ideal, and we do strive for it, or we have, until this guy came along and convinced the half of the population whose IQ is below 85 to vote for him. Americans should believe, quite rightly, that the richer everybody is, the richer everybody is. It's just that simple. The American system, rooted in this win-win open market ideology, is the greatest wealth generator the world has ever seen. And he's throwing it all away. Him and his tech bros, with their billions, don't realize that the system that made them rich is what they are deconstructing. Or maybe they do, and they don't want anybody else to be able to hoard the billions that we've let them hoard by not taxing it. Our system created the internet. The fucking internet. The way these guys have all made their fortunes. Because they came up with some great new thing that revolutionized the way we live. And I get it. When you do that shit, you risk your money, you risk your investment, you risk your reputation, you risk your time investing in innovation. You should be rewarded financially. I don't disagree. But to be billionaires off the backs of the American taxpayers who built the thing that's making you rich, the internet belongs to us. It's our tax dollars. And if you're somebody like Jeff Bezos who comes along and creates Amazon, sure, you should be rich. But your employees should be treated like people, like your fellow Americans. And the fact that your company put Main Street America out of business, closed down the malls, because admittedly, you've revolutionized the world, you should be taxed, and that money should go back into programs that revitalize Main Street America, that figure out a way to integrate the rest of the American population into success on the internet. That's how the American system is supposed to fucking work. And these guys are throwing it all away. Not only that, there is some very dangerous talk coming from this administration. One of Putin's big talking points has been that Zelensky is illegitimate, that one of the goals of the war is to eliminate the Ukraine-Nazi regime led by Zelensky. This propagandist nonsense has infected the Trump administration. They are now talking about forcing Ukraine to hold elections while at war in the hopes that Zelensky will be voted out and Vladimir Putin can deal with somebody else. It's the win-lose scenario all over it. Putin must make Zelensky lose. It's personal for him. While the people of Ukraine, who empowered Zelensky to represent their needs, and by any account, he has been a miraculous wartime president. Good for Ukraine, as far as I can tell. This threat of forcing elections, when 7 million of your people are out of the country, how do you account for them? How do you give them a voice? When another several million are in occupied territories, how do they get to vote? And why would you open the door for Russia's favorite game, election interference? It's insanity. It's the both sides. We need to address both sides. No, we do not. We should not be negotiating with terrorists. Putin needs to lose. But the transactional nature of Donald Trump means he's going to take Putin's needs seriously. The greatest bluff that Putin has ever made against the West is that he can be satisfied. There is no satisfying him. Very frightening was that Solyov last night on the live says on this subject of elections in Ukraine that the Americans have adopted our point of view. Now, right there, that should be a red flag that we're thinking about things all fucking wrong. Finally, let me leave you with this because I think that it's absolutely amazing. This is a Ukrainian Mi-17 helicopter. That's the export version of the Russian Mi-8. And what is happening is the guy up there is firing at that drone. See it there? And he's just hit it, and it's losing altitude, and bada bing, bada boom, smash right into a Ukrainian cornfield rather than a school, hospital, or apartment building. And as a person who lives here in Kyiv, who can sometimes hear the two-cycle engine of the Shahed over my house, I want to say I'm extraordinarily grateful to the Ukrainian Armed Forces, to the Radio Engineering Corps, to the Mobile Defense Battalions, and everybody who guards us in our sleep. Thank you. And that's it for me. That's the news that we are waking up to for Tuesday, February 4th, what would have been my father's 92nd birthday. So everybody, if your father is still around, give him a call today. Say hello. And Dad, happy birthday. All right, that's it for me. I'll see you on the line.